Tonight we got 'em, Goldie, the Sulk, and JC.
The typical, disgusting display. And it starts right now.
Oh, you okay?
Hello.
Is everyone okay?
I didn't know how to start. Again, this is like the fourth time we've started now,
Yes, it
and
is.
I don't even know how to begin. I don't even know how to begin.
Oh, it's the beginning of...
I'll tell you how to begin.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to A Typical Disgusting Display, a podcast for writers by writers who hate writing. My partner has either had a stroke or is in some kind of marijuana brain fog. So I'll just start out and say that what a week. I went to visit him on Cape Cod at his house. We celebrated his 50th birthday, and no one was happier / sadder to turn 50 than this guy. How about that? Is that a nice little ramp in?
That's a good ramp in.
That's great, Goldie.
Well, let me vocal Glenn. Yeah, so I had a bunch of friends came to Cape Cod. We had a whole weekend thing, longer, like 3 or 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, it was
Long.
90+% amazing. It was great. Like
good.
I loved seeing you guys. I loved hanging out with you guys. And then I got derailed on the biggest night of the whole thing. So
On the biggest night of your life.
so far, possibly.
Maybe that's why.
But I
Maybe
don't get
that's
why
why.
it upset you so much. I mean,
Expectation?
No, I don't either. I wish I did. This is why I'm in therapy, to figure out who I am.
It was not a big deal. It wasn't a big deal. I'll tell
But-
you what.
Yeah.
Your friends, particularly your high school friends, were so nice and welcoming to me.
Aw.
I
They
actually
were.
feel like I have more friends at your high school than I have at mine.
That's so funny.
Wait, that's it.
First joke of the day.
I know
First
it's not
joke
a
of the
joke, but
day.
it's fun.
I would happily just go to your reunions from
Right.
now on,
You
rather than
can.
my reunions. There
Well-
are more people who like me there, and I'll
Yeah.
say it was
really
a
sweet.
very interesting insight on the distinction between you and me, because it made me go, oh, he feels good and secure. He's felt good and secure since he met these fellows and had this support system his whole life. So he approaches comedy and life with this background of things are going to work out, maybe with a little bit of backdrop of, oh, my best days are behind me because those days were so great. I, on the other hand, approach everything from, God, all that time in my life was miserable, so I'm struggling to prove everything wrong, never believing anyone will like me or accept me, and that's
Oh,
how I
man.
come to comedy. So I got to see both sides of it, and I
Well-
just want to steal your life, like
yeah,
a sort
but
of.
that's, it's fool's gold. It's fool's
Is it?
gold. And you know that because, I mean, even the way you just described me is like, oh, maybe that's why he's so confident and self-assured. That's not true at all. Like, I'm not. And maybe you think like, well, you have way more reason to be given the fact that you came out of that situation.
Oh, I was ready to talented Mr. Ripley you all weekend.
Second joke of the day.
Second joke of the day. Yeah, but let's get into the derailment a little bit because I'm interested. As you know, I'm on this therapy adventure trying to figure out who I am at 50, who I was ever, and how I feel about anything. It's so hard for me to express. So we had many, many fun nights, meals, dinners, all the usual suspects
And
were there.
people, I thought, paying tribute to you, saying nice things about you, showing up for you. So absorb
Yeah.
that a little bit.
I can't. It's hard.
Maybe
Don't
that's-
be like the California drought ground that's so
Yes.
sun-baked that when the snow finally dumps, it just all runs off. Like, everyone came because they love you. They didn't just show up. The food wasn't that good.
By the way, the food was excellent, Tall.
It was good, but it wasn't that good. That's not why we were there.
Compared to the
All
love
right, well,
for
that's
you.
nice of you to say. You also derailed me in my one moment of pondering.
Oh,
there.
Jesus Christ, go.
Derailed again. So we had lots of fun evenings, meals, etc. And then it's the big night, and this is a surprise for me. I'm not. I haven't been told what's happening. I was told to buy clothes, which we may get into briefly after this. But I was told to buy nice clothes for this Saturday night thing. So then it starts, and Tall has put together like just kind of a very impressive evening. There were poker tables. There was amazing catering, like fast foods as opposed to like having to sit down for a dinner, which was great because everybody could kind of do their own thing. There was a guy playing the piano who will come play a prominent role in a moment. And then there was just sort of another room where the dudes were hanging out watching the slam dunk contest, which we were having a fine time, like enjoying that, laughing. So there were these sort of several separate areas where everything was going very well. You could hear the squeals of delight from the poker table. As you said, Goldie, there were several people having an adult conversation by the piano. Mm-hmm. Everything was great. Then, so just a little background here. Not everyone who was there was invited.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
So there were people there that maybe weren't invited, and through various circumstances, they were there anyway. So
Was I one of them?
You made it, but you somehow flew under the radar. So one of these people sort of pops their head into the room where we're all watching basketball, and with a very kind of plaintive tone is like, the piano player's only here for another hour, and I think it would be nice if, you came out and it was sort of presented, at least in my mind, I interpreted it as Tall, my wife, is asking through channels that I get out there.
That's absolutely what I thought as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the backup there. Yes. So I take this bait, and even though I'm having, again, a fine time watching the slam dunk contest, laughing with friends I haven't seen in a while, I head out to the piano.
Hang on, you're leaving something out.
Yeah.
Then a second and third different emissaries were sent, appearing as though they were coming from your wife, which they were not.
Right.
But they must have been coming from this other person. And then, I don't know if you remember, exited the room.
But you're getting the order wrong.
Okay,
aren't you? Aren't you getting the order wrong?
I don't know. I'll let you go.
Anyway, my memory
your fucking birthday.
My memory, happy fucking birthday. So anyway, through these requests, I get kind of dragged around the corner to the piano, and I go in there. It's all like totally different. It's like really brightly lit for a party. Like everything is, the room is very bright, and this guy's playing piano, and he kind of stinks. He's just like soulless. Like I play piano, and this guy was technically way better than I am. He could take pieces of music and play, all the songs on there, but there was something like, it just felt like I was at a DoubleTree Inn bar or something.
It's almost as though he was doing it just for the money.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. So I'm in this room.
In his stupid little vest.
I know, he had a vest. You're right. He was invested, heavily invested. Not a light person. So I came around the corner, and Tall is sitting there on the couch. So this is all lining up as like, oh, this was her request. So I go and I sit with her in this incredibly brightly lit room. And then behind me, so there's sort of a wave of kind of everyone who was doing everything else and having fun at the party sort of shuffles in as though they have to.
Well, because it's your birthday, and we're all loosely tracking you and trying to please you. But
right. So then everybody's watching me watch a piano player, like, and I felt sort of like suddenly like a zoo animal. Like it was not like everyone came in like singing along with the piano man. It was like a quiet shuffle and like, what's happening in here? So it was very uncomfortable. And even Tall, who rarely gets uncomfortable in social situations, was instantly like, okay, this is weird. So I pull the ripcord. I'm like, I'm going back into the slam dunk room where I was enjoying myself.
Yeah.
But by that time, the damage had been done. Everyone was aware that like, oh,
it was weird.
Aren't you kind of supposed to be in there over by the piano? So that was the time when more people started popping in and leaning their head in and like looking at me and like, kind of giving me head gestures. And I'm so annoyed at this point. And in my memory, that was the moment, Goldie, when you walked out of the slam dunk room and then instantly came back in through another door and just shouted at me, "Get in there!" And and it worked. Like,
well, it had a very mommy and daddy are fighting vibe. And so I thought, oh, maybe this will break the ice in a fun way and get through whatever this interlude was, and either get us to the conclusion of like, all right, here are the 3 songs we're all going to sing together so we can go back to doing whatever we want, or blow the party up so much that we could just go back to our rooms.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so you were close on that. So it got me back into the other room. Again, soulless piano player.
And my motive, honestly, was just thinking that, like, I did want to make things better.
Yeah, no, I get that. And it was funny when you came in shouting like that. It was very like 1950s alcoholic dad. It was very funny. So I go in there, again, soulless piano, people trying to sort of, it seemed like Let It Be had like 8 extra verses. Like the way,
of course.
It seemed like the national anthem. Like there are these, there's the one we all know, "Oh, Say Can You See?" And then all of a sudden there's ones about like Baltimore and
I have no idea.
and you know, where the pants were knit and stuff. And
the greater metro DC area. So it was just, and by that time I was so off kilter. Like I was, angry about the way that the way the evening had turned from like pleasant fun to now I don't know what this is, but I really don't like it.
Right, obligatory.
Right. And so also what I meant to talk about was the night before, which was Friday. It was one of those nights, and Goldie, I know, and both of you guys don't drink, but you remember, there are some nights where most nights, if I say, "Oh, I'm going to have a drink tonight," I'll have like 2.5, and I'm like, that's it. And the Friday night, for whatever reason, maybe it was something I ate that day, it was one of those nights where I could have like 6 drinks. Like it just kind of kept going through the night. And I was fine, but like the next day, this day of the party, I think my tank was a little empty.
Oh, yeah, that'll affect
that makes
you
sense.
for sure.
Yeah. So then when people notice that I'm off, the birthday boy is off, like that becomes the headline. And it certainly was. With Tal, it would put this whole great thing together and then only to have it kind of seemingly ruined by my dark attitude.
Oh, no.
And so it was just a shitty like cherry on top of an otherwise very nice Sunday.
Right. But it wasn't,
first
but were
of all,
you dark? Oh, go ahead.
It wasn't ruined, okay?
No. But in my mind, like this is me projecting. The night was not ruined. Like lots of people had fun. I had fun for most of it.
Yes.
But it was, again, that's the news that sells, is the bad news. So it was like that kind of took over, and it took over in my mind, where I'm naturally predisposed to kind of like blame myself for shit anyway. So I was like particularly beating myself up. Then Tal sees that I'm getting into that zone, and she's like, "Well, what the fuck else do I have to do to, give you a nice night?"
Oh.
So that just became like this thing that then the next couple of days we're like digging out of in some way, and just many more sort of like apologies, and it just all becomes very exhausting, especially when I am aware, in those moments that it's happening, but I cannot pull the rudder enough to come out of the tailspin, and I can't make friends with my anger. I don't know exactly where it's coming from or what it's even all about. And also, you brought this up early, it's sort of a version of this. It's not like I was piled under Turkish rubble. Somebody asked me to go sing a song. And that's what sends me into a tailspin. So here I am blaming myself again, which is also exhausting. Anyway, that was the tale of my wonderful 50th birthday party.
Okay, first of all,
sorry.
like everyone was there for you because they love and esteem you. Okay, so recognize that people took
clearly
time
have
out of
trouble
their
with that.
lives. People took time out of their lives to go there. It's not the easiest place to get to because they wanted to be with you, and they were with you, and people had a good time, a very good time, and a memorable time. And
Memorable.
And you hosted them, and I think what's happening here, if I can play armchair psychologist,
Please.
is that you have these other issues with being 50 that you haven't really dealt with, that we all have, not unique to you, and that this was why around my birthday, I went kind of radio silent and did like one thing and popped my head out because I knew whatever I did would turn into this. Like if I tried to base an event on it, it's like trying to pile books on top of a ball. It's like you might get one or two on, but it's going to fall over because emotionally, I just knew there was something going on with me that no matter what I tried to do, if I said like, everyone go to Vegas or whatever, I would just either be going, this isn't good enough, or this feels weird, or like, what's it all mean? I should be with my family. And if I'm with my family, it's like, I should be celebrating, and nothing I did would work. So I just took the option of not doing anything. But so the other part of this that I feel a little bad about was that John Viner, who was not invited to be a part of this podcast, and it was put out to us that, maybe people will give a few toasts. And then, of course, when you hear that as a writer, you go, no, they're saying you're definitely giving a toast. This is, but then there was no spot to give this toast. And you seemed very alarmed by the prospect of this toast. So I feel bad that if you were off at all because of that, and I want to read you my toast on the podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
You can just see that you were running from ghosts. Like there's nothing there.
But can I tell you, because I thought about this, because you mentioned this before, and even when we were there, and my analogy is like, it was like I was storming the beach at Normandy, and then right before we got there, somebody told me, and by the way, there's sharks. It's like, Jesus Christ! Like I'm worried about the fucking German gun turrets. Don't put these sharks in my head. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it up the beach.
You were worried that the toast... Wait, were you worried that the toast was going to be not like a loving,
yes, and based
thing?
on plenty of past evidence. Like, you weren't, JC, you don't know about this, but we had a friend's wedding that the three of us went to, Goldie, Viner, and myself, and we were at a table, like, gangbanging a toast, like, writing a toast together, and it was brutal.
Okay.
Like, it was hilarious. But it was absolutely savage.
Okay.
So, and then there was a time when I became aware, like, Viner and Goldie are working on this toast, like, kind of in front of me. Like, it wasn't, you guys were doing it as I was, like, in the next room. And I could see Goldie sitting on the couch at one point. We were watching TV. And then instantly got up and like quickly walked into the kitchen where Viner was. And I said, Goldie just thought of a joke for this toast. And then like 5 seconds later, I hear huge laughs from the other room. So it was like it was like waiting in the dentist chair.
Okay, I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Well, so Viner's toast is a separate issue, but here's my toast.
I was right about that.
Yeah. It was mean, but funny.
I'm sure
hilarious. But mine is more like, mine was, if your mom was there, I didn't want to take any chances on people getting offended or ruining the night. So here's the bare bones of my toast. So, they would say like, does anyone have a toast? And I was going to go, I guess I could speak, but I didn't prepare anything. And then I was going to take out my cell phone and clearly
Joke
be
one.
reading it.
Joke one.
Joke one. So that's an aperitif, a sort of. So then I was going to say,
Nice.
I'm Goldie. I don't know if everyone recognizes me because I'm staying in the guest house. Because there was this whole, most people are staying in the main house.
Right.
A few of us, clearly more unsavory balder, were staying in the guest house.
You had the cool house.
Yeah, that's
it
why you
is
record
cooler.
the podcast, right?
But I was going to make a lot of hay of this, but I was going to have to read whether your wife Tall was really, because I know she seems to not like this area of joking because it is just sort of crapping on someone's generosity, which I don't want to do. But I also think it is funny comedically to set up. I was going to say, there's a whole slobs versus snobs dynamic here.
Yes.
And God forbid the guest house people come over. And, I was going to start talking about the time I texted you about something else. And then you said, by the way, there's charcuterie here if you want to come over. Like you weren't going to tell me they were having charcuterie in the main house had I not texted you about this smaller issue. So it's like, I get, if anyone needs us to leave and go. Anyway, I was going to like linger on guest house jokes for a while.
Love that.
Okay. Joke 2. Well, Alec is a big New England Patriots fan. And in a way, Alec is like the New England Patriots.
Oh, Jesus.
In that absolutely no one is still rooting for him to win.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's going to point out the trappings of your large, beautiful home and guest house and say,
good.
Right.
That's
it's
good.
enough. Lose for a while now. I was going to say, and of course, we all know Alec he's hilarious. He's one of the funniest guys ever. You know, the Ted movies. I mean, the Family Guy Star Wars episode. It's just he's just really like comedically very funny. I mean, it's not the type of humor I enjoy, but he's been successful.
That's good. That's a good way to go with that.
Yeah. So then I was going to do that. Then I was going to say, and it's just a testament to how great a guy Alec is all the people who show up. And it's one of the things I've noticed about Alec is I've known him for 25 years, and so many people think he's their best friend. He's the best friend to everyone. And then you'll meet like 8 people you didn't know who also think he's their best friend. So either he's an incredible guy or he's just basically a psychopath who's manipulating us all. So that was
that's funny. And I would have pitched to tag it with, and they're all named John.
Yeah. And so then this is the now big bit of my toast.
Oh, good.
I'm going to say Alex hit 50. He hasn't always taken the best care of himself, but we love him and we all want him to live a long life. So I researched this. These are Johns Hopkins Hospital, Johns Hopkins Medical School. These are their 12 keys to a long, happy life.
12?
Yep. Number 1, don't smoke or vape. Number 2, get up and move. Oh, boy.
Great, oh, boy.
Number 3, make healthy food choices.
Oh, no.
Number 4, have a sense of purpose with your work.
That's not Johns Hopkins.
Number 5, eat nuts every day. Walnuts are especially good. He's allergic.
I'm allergic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Number 6, be involved with your community.
That's hilarious.
These are not jokes. They're just sentences. His life is turning them into jokes.
That's great.
Number 7, drink in moderation if at all. Number 8, frequent sex. And then I was just going to do a leer like, I don't know.
Oh, God.
I don't know.
How dare you? There's the line.
Number 9, embrace spirituality or a belief in a higher power. Number 10, never sit longer than 15 minutes at a time.
Oh, savage.
Number 11, avoid soda.
You drink soda?
And number 12, key to a long, healthy life, get married. And then I was going to say, see you guys at the funeral.
Oh, my God.
That is so great.
Wow.
Oh, Goldie, well done. Well done. That was excellent.
It was nothing.
I know. Yes.
It was light and it was loving.
I
And there
agree.
was that bit, which is clearly those 12 things you've done
I
on
was-
the phone.
I
And
was-
by the way, I really didn't change the list much for comedy.
I'm sure.
Like, it was super close to what I did.
I know. I should hear that again. No, I was projecting the wedding toast we had written all those years ago onto what it was. But that was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. That was really
But
nice.
I'm actually glad you didn't get a chance to do it because that means Viner would have gone too, and
Right.
then it would have
Well,
probably gotten ugly.
One of my gifts to you was killing that toast. And there was a lot of
That's
behind the
nice.
scenes work I did. to
I
ensure
appreciate
that.
that.
Wow.
I
Like
appreciate that.
you understood that this was not a thing to have
Oh,
to do.
it would have taken an uneasy part of the evening and like opened its mouth, put it on the curb, and stomped on its head.
Yeah.
It would have been awful.
Wow.
Well, Viner continues to not be asked to be a part of this podcast.
But can I ask a question? Could you have, maybe you did this, just taken a walk and
No.
cleared your head? No, why not?
I mean, I guess I could have physically.
Yeah. I just feel like,
Yeah, I'm not even good enough yet in those moments
right.
to calm myself down. Maybe it would have worked, taking some deep breaths outside. But I find that sometimes in those moments, it's my time to be alone with my angry thoughts of like, yeah, then they did this and the injustice and holy shit.
Right.
And then I possibly could have come back with an even bigger head of steam. But,
right.
A lot of still under construction.
You got to deal with these aging issues a little bit.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I don't disagree at all. But it's just so fucking frustrating to roll right from whatever the other issues were before 50, which were plentiful, and now like, oh yeah, and now there's this big thing to deal with. It's like I haven't even begun to fight the other things.
What's
but
this
all
big
of life
thing?
that's the Buddhist thing is life is pain, it's unease, it's all these things.
Yeah.
Fucking Buddhists.
But wait, what is this big thing? You mean being
50? The 50, nifty 50.
Okay, well, I mean, you're still the baby of this podcast, but I was like, I feel like, you at a party, Goldie had said it, all these people came out there for your party. There's this pressure on you to now be in this good mood because you understand that your mood is the thermometer of this event.
Yes, well said.
And so when you are a moody person, and so you begin to become moody and you realize it's under a microscope, and then you start to feel suffocated.
And then I spin. It's
right.
That's JC. That's so well said.
And
and I wish Goldie, because what you said was right too. It's like recognize that these people are my friends who have come, a long distance to say happy birthday, and that's ultimately a great thing. But as a comedy writer, comic person that you are, you don't hear any of the good stuff. It's the bad thing that creeps through and becomes the headline in your life. So it's you're right, and God, I have to get better at that.
Well, I'll tell you what, you looked like $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, that's Goldie's inside joke.
Oh, is it? That's funny.
Oh, we can't even.
You
we don't have time to get into that now. But
His outfit was more expensive than you could imagine a man's outfit could be.
It was insane.
Really?
Insane. I'll just briefly say I'm going to shop in this town, Falmouth, that's near us. And you think like, okay, it's a small town on Cape Cod. And I was given a few choices of stores to go to. I went to the first couple. They didn't have much. And I went to the third and I'm like, holy shit, this is like a fucking New York store in Falmouth. I'm like, oh my God, I love these clothes. I love this blazer. I love these. Oh, look at these pocket squares. And oh my God. And so I'm in there for like an hour getting fitted, trying things on, all this kind of shit. I get up to the cash register and I'm thinking in my mind, like, okay, how much is this going to be? Like, I guess, will it be 2,000? Will it be, I bought a few things here. Will it be, it might even be over 3, but okay, it's my 50th. I get the bill. I'm embarrassed to say what it was on this podcast because it was so insanely. And when I talked to Goldie about this when it happened, and he was guessing, and I just kept giving my thumb up like this with every guess, and he's like, "Oh my God!" Like it kept going.
And we're almost. It was this outfit or a Toyota Yaris.
Yeah, basically, it's insane. Fully loaded. So I of course when presented with the price, like maybe a normal person would have said like, wait a minute, what the fuck? And no way. But I was fucking embarrassed. I was just like, okay, of course, that's fine. Gulp.
Right. I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
They did look great.
Well, I have to wear them every day for the rest of my life in order for them to amortize.
Well, I was gonna, as a joke, just spill red wine all over you.
As a joke.
Oh God!
It was like the one time I was presented with a sip of scotch from like 1938.
Oh wow!
All I wanted to do was spill it.
That's that rascal in you.
Yeah.
And of course, then now putting together the pieces, the added irony that was the purchase for that specific night, and then given what happened, it was just like, oh. So I bought the Yaris for this night, and then crashed it into a telephone pole.
Just take it easy on yourself already and do some
Yes.
Johnny jokes.
Yeah.
Let's do them.
Okay, let's introduce it a little better.
Now it's time for Johnny jokes.
From Hollywood, here's super expensive outfit, Johnny.
Oh boy, I love that Johnny's is taking it easy on myself. This makes it even
that's
worse.
The joke. Come on, man.
Get with it, man. Okay, I have a bunch this week. I have no idea what I'm going to do, so I'll just start doing them. Let's start off with a quickie. Well, the big story is President Biden made a surprise trip to Kiev yesterday. Well, he was surprised anyway.
There will be overlap.
I figured you'd have something. You usually have the big stories. Okay, and here's I don't know if you've been following this. CNN anchor Don Lemon is in hot water this week after making an on-air comment that women reached their primes in their 20s and 30s. Yeah. The comments garnered anger from women's groups and millions of bit lips from men.
Nice.
All right. What do we got here? Okay. Oh, some sad news. 60s pinup girl Raquel Welch has passed away after a brief illness.
He gone!
Yeah, she gone. And in honor of his era's biggest sex symbol, President Biden has announced that all 70-something penises will remain at half-mast. I don't even know if that's possible. Yucksville. And let's end with a shorty. Here's some medical news. The ulcerative colitis drug Rinvoq now promises to visibly repair the lining of your colon. Goggles not included. Take it away,
well
Johnny, too.
Good crop.
Well done.
Very, very well done. Okay. Well, a woman who was being held in captivity for a year escaped and fled to New Jersey. She then begged to be taken back into captivity.
That's great.
Okay. Yesterday, President Biden paid a surprise visit to the Ukraine, inspiring citizens of that battle-torn country that the world cares about their plight, and they are not alone. No one tell them he was only there because he took a wrong turn on the way to the bathroom.
Good overlap.
Okay. Archaeologists in Egypt discovered a 2,000-year-old dildo. Yep. It was buried in the bottom drawer of a mummy's nightstand.
That's good. I was trying to think of one for that.
And I'll end on a norm.
All right.
An expose by a stewardess reveals airplane bathrooms are completely unsanitary, covered in fecal spray, and almost never cleaned. Bad news for the millions who are now realizing they actually joined the Mile Covered in Shit Club.
Oh, what a closer.
Good
Okay.
crops.
Oh, folks, listeners, we are incredibly excited today. We have a great guest from the writing world. I mean, we've had guests before, we talked Tom and Max and their resume and the shows are impressive. Our guest today,
They're dog shit compared to this.
dog shit compared to who we have today. Absolute pile of steaming dog shit.
No,
and that is directed right at Tom.
We're
and
kidding,
Max.
of course.
Yes, some of us are sort of kidding. So our guest today has written for one of our all-time favorite shows, The Larry Sanders Show, which is any comedy writer worth anything, that's right at the top of their list. He's an Emmy-winning writer on 30 Rock, Will and Grace, The Comeback, which is
That's what I'm
probably the
excited
most
about.
criminally underrated show in TV history. So let's just bring him out. Mr. John Riggi is with us.
Hey,
John,
welcome.
welcome.
Hey
Also-
guys, good morning. Thanks for
We-
having me.
Oh,
Yeah. And
we are
shout out to Louis Schneider for introducing us. So really appreciate that.
Did Louis set this up?
Yes.
Yeah.
You introduced me to
Oh,
John.
That's great. Thank
Yes,
you, Lou.
thank
Yeah,
you.
we got an email, or I got an email from Lou because a couple of weeks ago I'd mentioned that public access show Stairway to Stardom from the New York area, and
Yes.
Lou wrote right away. He's like, "You have no idea how many hours I spent watching that show as a kid." So,
well, this elevates Lou out of the pile of dog shit I just put him in.
Oh no!
Also, I'm just glad that you guys, adhere to and honor your contractual obligation that I made you say that everyone else was a pile of dog shit.
Thank you for owning up to
that.
Yeah,
and,
thank you for owning up to it.
And can I just say one little thing about Louis that it's kind of, what are the limits of decency in this podcast?
None.
Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening except Lou. You can talk right to him.
So this is one of, like, Louis was one of my favorite people to watch do stand up, because he would literally sometimes get mad at audiences. I don't know if he told you this or not, but he would, if he was bombing, which sometimes would happen.
Sure.
He would literally look at them and say, ladies and gentlemen, it's not up to me anymore to prove myself to you. Now you people have to prove yourself to me.
That's great.
But he had this joke where he literally said, I wasn't out yet. I hadn't come out. But I think I might have, I was always trying to, I think, drop hints and stuff like that or something. So anyway, we were talking about gay porn.
Sure, that's a hint.
That's a hint. Have you seen one? Do you enjoy them on any level? Even just. And so I feel like I was the inspiration for this joke that he used to do, this bit that he used to do, where he would say, I watched a gay porn. And because I remember having this conversation with him, and I said, really, Lou? And he goes, it was the Z channel in New York. Is that what it was? Anyway, there was a channel in New York that she used to show porny stuff that was on for a hot second. And he allegedly had seen it. And I said, well, so you saw a gay porn? And he said, yes. And I said, how was it? And he said, it was okay up to a point, and then the entire story just fell apart for me. And I said, what do you mean? I think I'm telling this correctly. And he said, because he goes, these two construction guys walk in, and they're in this room, and they're like, well, it's, good day on the construction site. Yeah, it's a really good day. Hey, you want a beer? And it's like, yeah, they're having a beer. And then one of them's like, whoa, it's really hot in here. Do you mind if I take my pants off? And so the guy takes his pants off, and then the other guy takes his pants off, and they're kind of standing there, whatever. And the one guy looks at the other guy and says, you ever get your dick sucked? And the guy goes, yeah, once or twice. And Lou goes, and that's where it fell apart. And I said, what do you mean? And this is Louis' brilliant mind. And Louis said, if you had gotten your dick sucked that infrequently, you would know. Was it once? Nice.
That's great. Well done, Lou. And I love, Goldie and I are obsessed with the
gay porn.
Well, yes, that is A. And B is the adversarial relationship between comics and the audience. Our late great friend Brody Stevens, I don't know if you know him, Goldie, give us his opening line.
I hate you first.
He used to come out on stage and say, no, I hate you first, which we always just loved. So way to go, Lou.
Perfect.
And we're glad that Lou brought you to us. Now, in reading about you online, and boy, digging into the University of Cincinnati school paper was a joy. I gotta tell you,
wow.
A comprehensive interview you gave to them. As I said before we started, don't have too many questions about Cincinnati, unfortunately. And you kind of agreed with me there. Yeah, but you mentioned something interesting in the interview, which is from your early life. And you mentioned that when you were 12, that your mom took you on a trip to Italy and it changed your life. So I'm just interested, how did that trip change your life, and what did it change about your life?
Well, I think that, Cincinnati, and, it's not probably as nearly as provincial as it was when I was growing up there. And I know it's not. One of my nieces still lives there, and I go see her every once in a while. And the city has definitely matured and turned into something else. But when I was a kid, it was a very conservative city. It was a very, very kind of a closed-minded community. And, I went to Catholic school. I was raised by nuns. I was a good Catholic boy, which was nothing wrong with that. But I just was very closed. And my life was Cincinnati, Ohio, and that environment, and the world felt that big. And then when I was 12, my mom said, we're going to Italy, because my mother was off the boat Italian lady, and she had all this family in Italy, and she really wanted to go see them. And so I went to the Greater Cincinnati Airport and got on an airplane and flew to New York, and literally just doing that blew my mind. I was like, what is happening? Like, I remember flying over New York and looking down at New York and going, how can it be that big?
Oh, it's so great. Then
going to Italy and landing in a place where I didn't speak Italian. My mother would talk to myself and my sister in Italian, and we would answer her in English. I've never put an Italian sentence together in my life, except for the Ave Maria, which I could say from beginning to end in Italian. And my mother taught it to me, and then I would do it for the nuns. And when you can say the Ave Maria in Italian to a nun, you're basically Elvis. I mean, the reaction you get is beyond belief. But I got to Italy, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know the language, and I didn't know anything. And the first week I was there, we stayed for 6 weeks. Wow. And the first week I was there, I begged my mother for us to go home. I begged her. Her mom was still alive at the time. My grandmother was really old. I was terrified of her.
And had you seen her before or no?
Never. I hadn't seen any of them before. I didn't know any of them.
Yeah.
And my mother had 6 brothers, so I had a million cousins. And
overwhelming.
And what it did was, but by the time we were getting ready to leave, I didn't want to go home, because I had been to Rome and I started to see the Colosseum, and I saw all this stuff that I had never seen before. And so basically the shorter answer is, it took this tiny little slice of the pie that I knew as my life and just expanded it in a way that I didn't realize. Like, I didn't realize there was all that out there. And I still say, and I believe it to this day, if she hadn't done that, I would have stayed in Cincinnati the rest of my life. No doubt.
Wow.
No doubt.
Cincinnati, from what I've heard, like, the impression is, it's a city, but I've also heard it's more Kentucky than Ohio. Like, it's almost deep south. Is that the case? Or?
Well, it definitely has a southernish feel to it, because Kentucky is right across the river.
Yeah.
But I think that, like I said, I think it's probably more kind of coming to its own now. Like, Procter & Gamble's national headquarters are there, or international headquarters, or whatever the hell they are. And it has a pretty, now a pretty decent art museum and a really well-known ballet company. And there's a lot of things about it that are very much kind of cosmopolitan. But I grew up on the West Side. And, we were I grew up on West Side in Sailor Park, and they used to call us river rats, because I was right by the Ohio River. That's where Sailor Park was.
Right.
And it was I'm not going to lie to you guys, it was kind of Andy Griffith. I mean, it really was sort of like that. Like, we used to go down to the river and fish, which I wasn't supposed to go down to the river. And we lived near, I mean, this is horrifying and terrible, but we lived very close to a Monsanto plant.
Oh, wow.
We used to call it Stinky Monsanto, because some days it would smell horrible, and we'd be like, "Oh, it's Stinky Monsanto," and we're going, "What the hell are we breathing?" But nobody even thought about that then.
Right.
Oh my God.
And I don't want to give it the perception that it's not a perfectly nice city. It is, but it is my hometown, and all I can say is all I could think about was I wanted to leave. I used to watch the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
And they would say, from Television City in Hollywood, and I would in my brain go, God, there's a Television City. What does that look like?
And then how disappointing was it
when you first worked at
Television City?
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
It's like Cincinnati without the ballet.
Exactly.
Now, we have a lot of writers' rooms to talk about, because that stuff is always so interesting. But you started as a stand-up. Now, how old were you when you started doing it, and what brought you there? Like, were you just told that, were you a class clown? Did you kind of love writing down observational comedy? Like, how did you get into that at first?
Well, the way I got into it, I was not a class clown. I was really good. seriously, I was like a good boy in school. Like the nuns really did love me, and like they loved my mom. And my mom had a delicatessen that I worked in the summertime. And at Christmas time at my elementary school, we sold Christmas cards to make money. And my mother would take like just crates of these Christmas cards and sell them. And we were loved. So I was never, ever, ever bad in school, but
Right.
I could make people laugh. And I really think, honestly, my mom was, I mean, if we're really going to go deep into it, my mom and dad got divorced when I was fairly young, and my mom hooked up with this other Italian guy who was kind of a bully and not a great guy. And they opened a business together. And so he used to come over during the week. He'd drive her home and he'd stay and have dinner at the house. And he was a very volatile dude. And so I never knew what to expect when he walked in the door.
Yeah.
So I kind of developed my kind of like dog and pony show and hold up something shiny. But then I realized that I could make people laugh and stuff like that. So I was aware of it, and I was aware that my friends thought I was funny. And then the way I got into it was my friend Katie, who I still know, called me one time and said, there is a club just opened. We went on Friday night. A bunch of friends went out to this club, and it's right across the street from UC on Calhoun Street, and it's called DUI.
Yeah,
and
that's hilarious. That's a hilarious name. Is drunk driving.
It actually was I guess I should say it was DWI. But close enough.
Lighter.
Yeah.
I'm ready to laugh.
Yeah, and it was, and she goes, and we went there with a bunch of us, and she goes, and honestly, she goes, I don't think anybody we saw was funnier than you at our party, and I think you should go. They said they have open auditions.
Wow, how old were you?
I was late. This was like I was like 20. I was out of school for sure.
Amazing.
I guess I must have been in my mid-20s because I had lost my job. I remember that, my real job, and I wasn't working. And then I started doing this as kind of like just a fun thing to do while I was collecting unemployment and figuring out what the hell I was going to do next. Wow. So I called and they said, yeah, can you come to a meeting when we have Wednesday nights, we have meetings at 5:30. Can you come?
God,
the
comedy used to
club
be so
has meetings.
So organized. I love it. It's such a big deal.
They weren't AA meetings.
We got to lay out what we're going to do. Okay, item 1, make the audience laugh, guys. This is why we're here.
So there was a guy who ran it named Roger Naylor, who he kind of ran it. And so he would go, okay, so and he'd go through it and say, Mike, you had a really good week and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm kind of sitting there. And he said, this is John. John's going to join us. And they were like, okay. And then literally he said, okay, why don't you jump up on stage and show us what you got?
Oh, what do you have?
Well, he had said you need to have 5 minutes of material ready.
Oh,
okay.
And I was like, okay. And I honestly, I would tell you, but I can't even remember what it was.
Darn.
Yeah.
And I went up and I did it, and they were very kind and just laughed where they knew they were supposed to.
Oh, that's nice.
And then they started giving me spots there, and I started doing, and it was on the weekends, and it was a college crowd. And some nights it could be really hot and great, and some nights it would be death. And it was death a lot of nights for me. But what was great about it was a lot of comics coming through, especially then, would come there. So. And a lot of comics from Chicago would come down. So like Emo would be there, and Judy Tenuta would be there. And so we get these people that for us were like, wow, they really know what they're doing. Like we're idiots.
Yes.
But and so you kind of learn from them. Like Will Durst, I don't even know why Will Durst was there, but Will Durst from San Francisco came through and stayed and had I think he might have been doing a play or something, but he stayed for like 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Wow. He had a residency there.
Yeah, he had a residency at DWI. And so it was like people like that. And that's how it started. But I was always trying to find my own version of it because everybody was kind of, I don't know. I was just trying to find my voice, and I had a really rough time doing it. And I remember that when people ask me what it was like, I always say they would pay us $2 and you'd get $2 and a beer for your set.
Oh, wow. That's
And
more
so
than
More
we
than
ever
you get
made.
now.
More than we ever made.
I would get my $2 in quarters,
Wow.
and we had a missile command. There was
Yes.
a missile command
Yes.
thing, a game in the
Arcade game.
bar, and I would go up on stage and I would fucking bomb. And I would get my $2 in quarters, and I would put a quarter in, and the missiles would start coming down like this, and it would flash defend cities, and I would just sit there and drink my beer and watch the world blow up, and then I'd put
Get
another
bombed.
quarter in.
You were bombing on stage,
Yeah.
bombing
And
off
bombing
stage.
off
That's
stage.
great.
At
That's
least I was
great.
consistent.
Yeah.
Alec, that just made me have a memory of Gladys's comedy room, the Touchmatic machine by the bar. We would do the exact same thing. They had a basketball Touchmatic thing, and I now remember. I had forgotten about
totally
until
forgotten
this
that.
exact moment
Yeah.
that
Well,
we would
it-
do the same thing.
It's amazing. So many parts of your story, I feel like, certainly resonated with me and probably with Goldie too. It's just interesting how similar a path to becoming a writer can be, because even you talk about my parents were divorced early. I created a whole dog and pony show to make my mom laugh all the time.
Right.
And then mid-20s, fired from a job, collecting unemployment. What the fuck am I going to do? Do stand-up. Terrible place, bombing a lot,
Wow, yeah.
video game outside, and then it's like, thank God we became writers.
Yeah.
And now I'm obviously skipping over a lot here, but something that absolutely leapt off the page at me when I was reading one of your interviews was that you opened for Diana Ross in Vegas.
Wow.
And now, I found what you said about that very interesting, because it seemed to teach you a lesson about audience expectations. So can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like and what it taught you about audiences?
Right. Well, I was obviously, first of all, really excited because I was like, oh my gosh, because friends of mine were opening for big acts like that. And it was like, you can, if they like you, they'll bring you on and you can make a lot of money and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So what had happened to my stand-up sort of became kind of narrative. Like I was always interested in a story. So,
Right.
And I don't want to say it's that I was doing the same thing like that Gary Shandling was doing, but Gary was like one of my influences. Like I liked the idea of a longer story that had weird parts in it and funny moments. So I get to Vegas and I'm opening for Miss Ross.
And
And,
you still have to call her that.
Yes. And I just go out the first night and I just fucking bomb. Like I just bomb.
Yeah.
But I noticed that the actual kernel of the joke that I had, the actual setup and joke, that part of it, they would laugh.
Yeah.
And after like the second night or something like that, second or third night, I finally was like, okay, I have to strip out all the rest of this shit, basically.
Yeah.
At least they think it is.
Yeah.
And just get to the fucking jokes. Just do the jokes. And so that's what I did. And then once I learned that, I was okay. And I did fine. And it was fine. Like I did well. I would say I opened fine and it was great. But it wasn't what I wanted. Like my thing with the audience was always like, I wanted to feel them more. I wanted to have more of a give and take with them and see what it felt like and push something out really far and see how far I could push the board out before it tipped over. Like I just was always interested in that. And that was sort of more compelling for me.
Right.
So it wound up it did not go down the road of like, oh, now I'm opening for Miss Ross in 35 cities. That did not happen. I was there I think I opened for I think it was a 2-week thing, I want to say.
Right.
Never saw her, never
Wow.
spoke to her. But it was, her dresser said to me, the second night I was on, she came down and said, John, I got to tell you something. Miss Ross normally doesn't listen to the opening act, but once you started, she told me to leave it on so that she could hear it. And she goes, and I'm going to tell you something. She was laughing so hard that I couldn't put the glitter on her.
That's
Bravo.
Great. That's
and
almost
a good, nice sip afterwards.
Yeah.
Hitting that. I made you laugh, so now I can nourish myself.
That's right. That's a good punctuation with the sip. So that's hilarious. And now I watched a set of yours from 1986, and this prompts perhaps my most important question of the interview. Do you still believe in crystal light?
Because it believes in me. Oh yeah, I do. Yes. Yeah.
That was
Wait, what happened? When does this
I
happen?
laughed very hard when you said that, and I feel like we've said that on the podcast like within the last month. Like there was some
because
little...
I was in a Crystal Light commercial, but was cut out. And so that's where I was shot it out here in LA, and I was edited out.
God, those catchy theme songs like live forever in our minds. So
me too. So, that was very, another big influence for me was I think David Letterman was a big influence for me too. And so like the absurdity of stuff, at least to me, the absurdity of stuff is always like, I used to do a soup medley. I would say, here's 4 songs that are about soup.
Right.
And I would just sing them. This is not building a good set, by the way. I just want to make that very clear to anyone. If you're trying to learn, I would not say do the soup medley as the first thing out of my mouth.
But it was then, I think, because that was a shared reference that everyone would know. Whereas now, I think people are wandering into a landscape where those things are so rare. Everyone's siloed off from each other, and no one's going to get the big reference to the thing,
Right.
So I don't know.
It's true.
I think that's why every act now, in some sense, relies on the person bringing their background and of their heritage, their sexuality, whatever it is about them, and then going in through that prism and trying to go outward rather than going outward to the big thing, going inward. That's just a point.
Yeah,
I think that's very true. I think that's really true, though. I mean, I when I was thinking about coming to talk to you guys, I was like, it really has, stand-up has shifted and changed so much. That because we don't have big cultural references anymore that we all saw, because everything is so compartmentalized and fractured off and siloed off. And I mean, as we all know, I know this is not a new thought. Like you go to a party and people talk about 9, and I write television and people talk about 9 shows that I've never heard of in my life.
I know.
I think this is why someone like Dave Chappelle just keeps picking the scab on the trans thing, because it's something that everyone gets. It's one of the few things left that people will go, I have some opinion. I don't think he should do that, but I do wonder if that's why he does it, because or else what the fuck are you going to talk about that like you then have to go to these political things,
right,
and go, well, half of them are going to be with me and half of them are going to hate me, and I'm going to kind of sit in the middle as this wise person, like truth telling, which I hate, by the way. That's my least favorite kind of stand-up, but at least it's something that everyone, you don't have to explain it.
Yeah, that's totally true. So now we get into where the writing starts to begin, and you'll have to categorize it for me. I don't know if it was a chance encounter or just a comics encounter with Dennis Miller in Chicago at the Improv. And that, to my understanding, that was sort of the spark that got you really into the writing world. Is that correct?
That's very true. I mean, he had a big hand in it. I was working at the Chicago Improv. I was the opening act, and Dennis came in for the week, and I was very intimidated and hardly spoke to him at all. And I remember that he used to go up on stage, and there was a plant, like a yucca plant or some kind of just a big stalk with some leaves on the thing that they had stuck up there.
Funny name.
And he would kind of, fumfer around a little bit and kind of land on stage, and he'd be like, "Yeah, it's great to be in Chicago," and then he'd go, and then he'd look at the plant and go, "It's a beautiful example of the local flora here." So after like the 3rd day, we were at the bar afterwards, and he started to talk to me a little bit, and he liked my act, and he seemed to like me, and I said, but the way he started talking to me, he's like, "How's it going, Rach?" And I was like, "Oh, good." and I just couldn't not say it. And I said, "Hey, Dennis, can I say something? I'm not trying to be an asshole." And he's like, "What?" And I said, when you go up and you do this, because he did the thing about the plant every night.
Yeah.
Because it always got a laugh. And I said, when you do the thing about the plant? And he goes, yeah. And I said, it's flora, not fauna. You're saying local fauna, and fauna are animals, and flora is plants. And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I was a biology major. Yeah, I'm like positive." And I remember he laughed and he goes, "Reach, I don't pretend to know what half these fucking references I said."
That's great.
And so then we were kind of like, and then he was like, why are you still in Chicago? Why don't you come to LA? And I really didn't want to, because I was very happy in Chicago, but I made a trip out there. And I was also friendly with Rob Schneider at the time. And so I wound up going out there, and they introduced me to a lot of people. And then that's really how it happened. And then were you asking about writing, right? So then he said at the Chicago Improv, he's like, I might be getting my own talk show. And if I got a talk show, would you ever consider coming out and writing for me? And I was like, yeah. And this conversation had happened 2 or 3 times before, where some name would come through and be like, I'm going to be doing this thing and I'm looking for writers. What do you think about that? Give me your number. And then
nothing.
Never hear from him again.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So, but then he literally gave me his number. He's like, call me. He's like, call me and come out. Wow. And so I did. And he was like, yeah, come on out. Let's do this. I'll, whatever. And the show hadn't happened yet. But I went out there and I met people, and I wound up getting on a young comedians special, like those young comedian specials they used to do, an audition for that at the Improv.
Right.
And then I met some people from Brillstein Gray and Ray Rio, who used to be my manager. And then they were like, you really should come. Like, you really should think about moving here. And then I did.
How many years in were you at that point in the stand-up?
I was probably at least 8 or 9.
Okay, so had you been making a living solely as a stand-up to that point?
Yeah, I'd been making a living. I'd been traveling. I was like a road warrior comic, and I was going all over the place. And I really wanted to stop doing that. I was really tired of the road.
Yeah.
I worked a lot, but I didn't work in a lot. I also didn't work in a lot of places. Like, this was a true story also, that the Funny Bone comedy club chain, my friend Maureen used to book the rooms, and she showed me and told me that there was a line that they had all their clubs on a map of the United States, and allegedly there was a line drawn across the center of the United States, and they called it the Riggi line, because there are certain people that could not work south of that line. But the line was named after me, because I worked in a couple southern places, and it was not good. So.
That's so funny, because in the set that I watched on YouTube of you came out like a house on fire about Alabama. Like, and I wonder, like, could you tell? You couldn't even tell those jokes today.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But I hated it. I hated it so much. And I hated how I just couldn't.
Turns out you were right, by the way.
I couldn't understand the lack of, I guess I was kind of like, okay, if you don't think it's funny, I'll respect that. But you don't even know what I'm talking about, and that's making me crazy.
Well, I loved your line in that joke where you said maybe we should just pave it all over, just paving over a whole state.
I was really pretty angry,
and putting a patio door on the edge of Georgia so we could just go out and lay out in the sun in Alabama. That was very funny. Now,
that still works.
Yeah, it does. It's very funny. So to hang on Dennis Miller for a minute, because there was another interesting nugget in this interview where now I guess you're out in LA. You had either worked with Dennis Miller or you were just friendly with him, and one day he went with you to go look at like either a house or an apartment. And at this point, you mentioned earlier that, you're out, you're a gay writer, but at this point you weren't really out. And it seemed like from this interview that you had a difficult time navigating how to come out, when to come out, to whom to come out to. And there was this moment with Dennis Miller that kind of exemplified that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Is this the bike pants thing?
Well, in the interview, it was something about a shirt, but I think it's the same kind of feeling.
Yeah, I think it might have been bike pants, but I remember, yes, we were going to rent this apartment. Why? You reminding me of this because I do remember him walking up those steps behind me.
Yes.
And we were going to rent this guest house in Silver Lake, myself and my boyfriend and my friend Jack, who always lived with us forever.
Yeah.
So the three of us were going to rent this guest house that was in the back of this apartment building on Waverly Drive over in.
That's not far from me.
I know it. I know.
Yeah.
Right down from where the LaBianca's got killed by the Morgan family.
Yeah.
So
local fave spot.
Yeah. So he was walking up the steps with me, and I'm sure it was the bike pant. I was wearing these bike shorts to work, which was not. I literally had bike shorts on and like Doc Martens.
Yeah, as you said, you were dropping hints.
Yeah, I was dropping hints, and he was like, "Rach, what's going on with the shorts today?" or something like that, and I was like, "Oh, nothing. It's just a warm day," and I just thought because it was like I was dropping hints, but then as soon as anyone noticed one, I'd immediately backtrack and be like, "Nothing."
Right, totally
warm.
Right.
So I remember he said, "Rach, you're not going fag on me, are you?"
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that was the part. That was
and
the
I
part
was like,
there.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's so interesting, and I guess that leads to a follow-up question is because now you've been an incredibly successful writer on fantastic shows for years and years, including shows that have, gay themes, The Comeback and Will and Grace and things like that. So what do you think has been the big shift thankfully, in attitudes? Because I think you have this idea in your mind like, oh, gay writer goes to Hollywood. That's not a headline for people outside of Hollywood, right? You'd think like, oh, that's the place where they'd be most comfortable. But it really wasn't a comfortable journey for you. So at what point did it become comfortable?
I think it became, before I say that, I'm going to say this because it's in my brain. It's one of the real regrets that I have, that one of the reasons I stopped doing stand-up was because I didn't feel like I could be my true self on stage.
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult for me. And I felt like a phony. And I was a phony. I felt like a phony going up and talking about some girl I had dated or some thing. And not that it needed to be all about my sex life. That's not what I'm saying. But when you literally have this part of yourself that it's not that you necessarily want to showcase it, but you can't even touch on it. You can't even, you can't even mention it.
Right.
Because you're going to taint the entire experience and make people feel uncomfortable. Stand up just started to, it's like the air just started to go out of the balloon. And it was so sad for me. Right. But I think what has changed, or what does change, and it's not a great thing to hear if this hasn't happened to a person, but I just think you have to own it, and you have to, I think we as gay people, as people who are LGBTQ plus, have to kind of allow ourselves to be who we are and tell people this is who I am, and I'm not dangerous, and I'm not going to scare you, and I'm just a person like you are. And the only thing different for me than you is my sexuality. And that's one tiny little part of who I am.
Yeah. And
just like I don't meet you when you're straight and just think about you constantly with your wife or with your husband doing whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
I see that you have a job and a life, and sometimes you drive places and you're not having sex, and you're not going to the grocery store, and you're not taking your pants off. And it's the same thing here. And it's like, it's kind of, first of all, owning it. You have to be comfortable with it yourself. And in order to make other people start to feel like they need to see this for what it really is. And then it's just putting it into perspective in your life, and not, like I'm so much happier and obviously and better off in this situation because I feel like as a queer dude, I can just walk around and go, oh, but he's like a normal guy because I am a normal guy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's like when you're carrying it with, it's like when I came out to my mother, it was like, my mother's from Italy, dude. And it was like, I didn't know how I was going to tell her. I had no fucking idea. And I literally had to build myself for a trap. I made her come out for Christmas one year, and we had always had roommates. David, my husband, and I, we'd always had roommates. So every time she came out to visit, it was always easy to say, oh, well, David and I will sleep in there and you can have this spare bedroom because we had 5 people living in a 3-bedroom apartment. But we bought a house and it was a 3-bedroom house. And I made her come out because I was like, I am going to make it so that I don't have a lie to stand behind.
Right.
And that was the beginning of it, really, I think.
Did she know on some level? I mean, or was she completely blown out of the water? Or do you think she knew but then acted like she was completely blown out of the water?
She did not know. She came out. I will tell you really quickly. It's a very sweet story. God bless her. She came out and I was living in Castaic out by Magic Mountain. That's the house I could afford at the time. So we bought this Kaufman and Broad house that was in a development where they literally sprayed your lawn on in the front and planted a magnolia tree that was about this big, and that was your house. And the backyard was dirt, but it was a brand new house. And for me, it was like, I have arrived. So I invited her out and I brought her in the house, picked her up at LAX, and I took her through the house. And I was like, oh, this is this. And my mom was a little Italian lady. She's like, oh, this is nice. Oh, it's nice. And I was like, yeah, Mom, this is the upstairs. This is a bedroom. This is like the loft part. She's go, oh, these so pretty. You can see the whole house in here. And so finally I go through, and this is the bedroom right here. And she's like, oh, and they had a little deck off of it. And then I go, and then this is another bedroom, but this is my office. And she said, And I go, and then this is another bedroom that is now David's office. And she goes, oh. And so I go, so that's the house. And she looked at me and said, so where does David sleep?
Right.
And I took a giant deep breath. And every time I tell the story, I feel like I'm saying it again. I took a giant deep breath and I said, he sleeps in here with me. And my mother said, you mean to tell me that you and David sleep together? And I said, yeah, Ma, I do. And then she said, so you mean to tell me that you like to sleep with men instead of women? And I said, yeah. And then I swear we stood and just looked at each other. It was like 2 gunslingers in the OK Corral. Like we were both just looking at each other, like who was going to make the next move. And then I said, "This is all true. My hand to God, this is all word for word true." And I looked at her and I said, "Ma, are you okay?" Because she said nothing. And she looked at me and said, "I got to put the tortellini in the freezer."
That's even a funny pasta.
How do you not take a sip now? You've totally earned it. Good God. If anyone ever deserved a sip.
There it is. That is amazing. Oh, God bless moms.
But that was my first step to owning it and then realizing it was okay. And yeah, I don't know. I just know it's everybody's got to figure it out, but you have to know it's okay in your heart.
Right.
First.
Yeah. And do you
that's
feel
an amazing story.
Do you feel because you felt like you could be authentic that your career also turned for the better because of that?
Oh yeah, because then everything that you are, you can bring into the room. Everything. You're not like packing something away before you walk in and being cautious about what you say and trying not, because that to me shrinks down your creativity so much.
Oh, yeah.
You're so concerned about yourself or what you're going to say, or what I remember one time on Sanders, we had gone out to get coffee, and I was with Carol Leifer, who, by the way, was not out at the time either. And we had got my friend Kevin Rooney, God bless his soul. Kevin was working on another show also on Radford, and we had gone over to Starbucks to get a coffee. And while we were at Starbucks, this person had come down with a big giant golden retriever. And the dog came over to me, and I was like, "Hey, buddy." And I started petting it, and it was like jumping all over me, and I was whatever. And Rooney said, "Riggi, I forgot you're a big dog person." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And then Carol said, and she was like, "Riggi, do you have a dog?" And I said, "Yeah, I have she's like an Irish setter mix." And she said, "Really?" And she goes, "So who watches it when you're at work?"
Oh.
Yep.
And it just came out of my mouth, and I went, "Oh, I have a roommate."
Wow. Yeah.
And there's no good way to repair that after you've said it. Like,
Yes.
there's no elegant way to say, "Hey, you guys remember when you were talking about the thing and you asked me to watch my dog?" And I said, I meant to say I have a lover.
My boyfriend.
Well, so you're right. It's so freeing to be able to, as you say, bring all of yourself into a writer's room, which is a good segue, because you've been in some amazing writers' rooms over the years. Do you feel like, are they all just jobs, or do some of them hold special places in your heart?
Some of them were jobs for sure, but I've tried really hard to not pick the ones that were just going to be jobs. I tried to pick the ones that were going to be special in my heart. And
Yes.
sometimes my agents and stuff were going, "Don't take," like 30 Rock. Like, my agents were like, you want to go on Ugly Betty, because Ugly Betty came out that same year, and they really wanted me.
Great move, agents.
Yeah. Silvio really wanted me to do it. But I was just like, I saw the 30 Rock pilot, and I was like, and it was only going to be 13 episodes. And I went home to David and I said, "I have to go to New York for this, but it's just going to be 13 and out." Because everybody was talking about Studio 50, that Aaron Sorkin show, which was
60.
60
Go
yeah.
up.
And go up. And that was going to be the big show. Like, everybody was putting all their chips on that show.
Yeah.
And I said to David, I was like, "It's just going to be 13 episodes. And I go to New York." And I was like, honestly, I was like, "Dob, it's as close as I'm ever going to get to working on SNL. And I would really like to do it." And he's like, "Okay, if you want to do it, then go."
I think all of us dream of the moment we get to tell our spouse we have to go to New York for 3 months.
Yes, we can. Very relatable. Very relatable. Now, in reading about, first of all, your route to the Larry Sanders Show writers' room wasn't exactly a straight line. You had sort of an interesting way in there where I believe you were auditioning to be a character on the show, and then that somehow turned into you becoming a writer on the show. But the most interesting thing I read about that was that you said that Gary Shandling told you guys basically how to write that show, because there's the sitcom world is very traditional: set up, punch, act break, as we talked about earlier, show blow, that kind of stuff. But Gary had a different way of getting into the comedy. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I found that so interesting.
Yeah, he would tell us, I remember him saying that we weren't writing jokes on Larry Sanders. That obviously sometimes there were jokes, but when a character told a joke or said a joke, the character knew that they were saying a joke, as opposed to a sitcom where they don't.
Right.
Gary would always tell us, "We're writing about human behavior." That's what he would say. And he would say, "And what you need to do is study the human behavior and then find the comedy in the behavior, because people are inherently funny if you watch them in what they do and how they hide something and try not to tell the truth and wanting to get something out of you, but are not going to be honest enough, just say they want it." Right. So they go down these very, very long, elaborate paths to get what they want. And that is a funny move on a part of a human being. And that's what we're after. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to find. That's how we're going to build the scenes. And that's what we're going to write about. And so that's what he was always pushing.
And you guys did that so well. And What stands out to me, obviously, and you described it in this interview, of the triad of Larry and Hank and Artie, and those three were kind of driving almost every story. But what's interesting to me is Hank and Artie, Jeffrey Tambor and the late great Rip Torn, their characters were a little bit elevated, a little bit, a little off the ground in terms of their reality, because they were so like what they were. Hank was, a crazy character, and Artie was a sort of, grizzled producer. But Gary, what seemed so close to himself. Like, I can't claim to have known the man, but what you say about find what's funny about human behavior and write the comedy from that. To me, what's so great about that show is that it feels like he bears his soul and he shows you warts and all, like who he is. And it's so funny. And I'm wondering, when you guys were coming up with stories or jokes or, different things about the episode, was he ever like, oh God, that makes me so uncomfortable that I'm like that, I can't do it?
I don't think he ever went as far as saying I can't do it, but I know that he, like we all did, struggled with anything in your life was kind of fodder for that show.
Yes.
Like there was an episode where when Scott Thompson came on as Hank's assistant,
yes,
he got a phone call from his boyfriend in front of Hank, and that was based on me. David had called me one day and was like, it's urgent. And I was in with Gary and they were like, it's urgent. And as it turns out, it wasn't urgent. And I was very upset with David for so many reasons. Not the least of which was when we worked, and that show was my life. And so like we used that. So, but the thing is they were all very much what Gary was great at doing was, Jeff, I won't say that Jeff was Hank, but Jeff had so many of Hank's insecurities about his act. Like he would literally walk up to you after a take and go, how was that?
Like, by the way, it was great, always great.
Yeah, he literally would. And Rip was incredibly volatile and you never knew what might set him off. And Gary would just write to that. And we would all learn how to write to that. And Gary was like, I think Gary's thing was he thought that he was going to be a very, very, like maybe he'd be able to take over the Tonight Show from Johnny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he could have.
And he could have. Yeah. But he wanted that. You know what I mean? Like he wanted the Tonight Show, because what happened with the Dennis Miller Show was the Dennis Miller Show was initially set up for Gary to take over, to be it was going to be the Gary Shandling talk show.
Wow.
And Brad Gray had negotiated and put it all together. And at the end, Gary was like, I don't want to do a syndicated talk show. I want to do the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And so Gary dropped out and they gave it to Dennis Miller, which was a disaster, but that's what.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about Jeffrey Tambor, just because he's one of my idols, and like just writing for someone like that? I mean, you did a little bit, but literally anything you can tell me about Jeffrey Tambor, I'm an audience for it.
Yeah, he was really, really, really amazing. And he was just such a funny guy. And I don't know, they were all three, like I can remember watching them, and after we do takes, just seeing them like come together and talk about what had just happened. And Gary would lead it, but they all three kind of knew each other's rhythms and stuff like that, that it was just very, it was very awe-inspiring to be in front of them. And Jeff was he's just funny, weird, slightly insecure, really, really a pretty kind man. I don't know. He was great.
That's awesome. That one, an episode that always stands out for me is the one where Larry either had bad yogurt or hit his head or something, and Hank has to host for the night. And that episode is so there's something so true about it, and there's something so hilarious about it. You watching Hank go from terrified to getting, you know, and then even Larry watching at home and saying, oh, he just got his first big applause break, and just watching it all go to his head and then fall apart so quickly. That was so great.
Yeah.
Just, of the many episodes that I love, that one is front and center for sure. So, I mean, obviously we could talk about Larry Sanders for a further hour. I mean, I think it's one of the, if not the greatest sitcoms of all time. But let's move on for a second here to something that might not be on that list. And I was surprised to see Family Guy is in your credits. So
Yes.
when was that? It must have been early on in the show. And what was that experience like for you? And keep in mind, we weren't there, and so we don't care.
Okay.
Were you in the room?
Yes, I was in the room.
Okay.
I was there right at the very, 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 very beginning.
Okay.
And I was at 20th in a development deal, and they had just gotten Seth they had just found Seth and wanted Family Guy, and Family Guy was being developed. And I was there. So I was there right at the very beginning.
Right.
And, you know, for me right away, like I knew that, like I could tell that Seth was really talented, obviously, and come up with this world and done this whole thing. But I also remember that two things about it was, one was 20th did not think or didn't have a whole lot of faith in Seth as a showrunner because he'd never done it before. He was,
Right.
He was
he
young.
was like from Rhode Island or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they had brought someone in to run it with him. And that guy, whose name I can't remember.
Dave Zuckerman.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was really bad was Seth would go away and have to go like look at animation and stuff. He would be gone doing like animated stuff.
Yeah.
And he would say, I like this and this and this. And then that Dave would run the room and we disassemble all of it
Whoa.
and basically do Dave's agenda. And I don't want to say what I think was going on, but I have my thoughts about what was going on.
Well, we all know it went to 4 a.m. Like we've heard these stories.
Yeah.
You were
But
there
I mean,
forever.
here's the other thing too. I wouldn't stay. Like I was just like, I'm leaving at 7, guys. I'm not staying.
Yeah.
So I never stayed there for
amazing.
dinner. I never did any of that. And it was a pretty volatile world when I was there because of that. Because
Yes.
I think Dave had a very specific way that he thought the show should be. And then Seth had an entirely different version of it.
Right.
And the writers were kind of stuck in the middle trying to like serve two different people who seemed to want two different things. So
It's still that way.
No, it is not.
It was really, really difficult. It was really, really difficult at the time. And I felt bad because the only thing I was saying to like, you know, not that anybody at 20th was asking me, but if it occasionally did come up, I would just always be like, it seems to me that Seth has a really clear idea of what he wants the show to be. Like, I don't understand why you've got somebody else in there when it's not like he's going, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. It's like, no, he knows what this is.
Yeah.
You bought it from him. Just let him make the show. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of thought it was that.
Yeah.
But I kind of, you know, the show was also, I mean, being 100% honest, I appreciate the show and I like the show, but it's really not my flavor. So
Same.
I don't really, I didn't really find it for me to be the thing that would be like my first choice as far as something I would be wanting to work on at the time, because I just was like, it's just not my thing. But I thought that it was 100%. The thing that I kept saying was, and that I always look for in anything was, I just want the person to know what they want so that I can try to facilitate and be additive.
God, you put it so well.
And Seth was so clear about what he fucking wanted.
Yeah.
That putting this other person in, and it was also probably at the end of the day unfair to Dave because he's in there going, well, this is what I think it is. And when he has brought me in here to facilitate, so I guess I should speak up. Anyway, it was kind of a mess.
Yeah. Did you stay the whole first season?
No, I didn't stay very long at all. I was only there for maybe about half of the season. And then something happened. Either I pitched something for development for 20th. I think that might've been what it was. And then they were like, yeah, go write that script, which of course then went into the flaming pile of never to be seen again. But
well,
yeah,
the good news is they managed to develop all this great stuff that remains on the air to this day.
Well, and also let's not weep for David Zuckerman, who has his name as developed by on the show, so still makes tons of money off of our sweat.
MBA.
But okay, so that's an interesting experience, and now we've kept you here for quite a while, so let's just stipulate to the fact that 30 Rock was amazing, a wonderful unicorn of an experience, and the people there, I'm sure, were hilarious, and you started to rake in Emmys, which must be, as Goldie says, must be nice.
Yes, MBA.
But I really want to talk about it, and I know Goldie does too, the comeback. So the comeback, as I said at the top, criminally underrated. I feel like it's as close to, if not an exact, sort of equal to the British Office, like in the way that it's, there are cameras there. It's sort of a mock reality show. And you have this central character who wants to be loved so badly. What was it like working on that show? I hear you had a smaller writer's room and that Lisa was in there with you guys doing the character. I can only imagine that just must have been amazing.
It was truly amazing. I'm pretty good friends with Michael Patrick King. And so Michael had said to me, I'm going to do this show. And I was like, with Kudrow, and I was like, that sounds great. Let's do it. And so we started it. It was, yes, it again was, what felt familiar immediately was my experience at Larry Sanders, because I felt like we were again going to write about a person's crazy behavior.
Yes.
That was the one thing. The other thing was how truthful we tried to be about things. We pushed things, but at the same time, I've now seen enough in Hollywood where I'm like, I don't think Valerie Cherish is that off the mark as like a real girl.
No, she's a bullseye.
So it felt very familiar to me in that way, and it was very, very. It was again one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever had, because Kudrow's a genius, just an absolute genius.
Totally.
That character is something that she totally invented herself when she was at the Groundlings, and it was. The challenge about it, especially in the second season, when I directed some of them, was we always tried to make it feel like it was happening right in the moment. And especially when you're directing, it's hard to set up your shots, but make your shot feel like a cameraman just happened to whip over at that exact moment and find the thing.
Yes.
But it was, I just remember seeing her. I just remember being on the set with her and just thinking, she's got moves like I've just never seen before in someone, and could go from being like, the thing I always talk about on this, my sort of standard comeback story is, I think it was my episode, but I'm not sure. It might not have been. But there was an episode where she had promised that she could get Tom Selleck to come on the show as a guest.
Right.
And she had kind of flaunted this around, and she was kind of swinging it at anybody that would listen, and Tom's going to come, and Tom's going to be on the show, and Tom's going to do this, and telling Pauly G and kind of getting her back, she's going to get some respect from Pauly G because she's going to get Tom Selleck, who he couldn't give it more or less of a shit about. And then she gets a call from Tom Selleck, and he says, I can't do the show. And we shot it. I forget where we were shooting it, but we shot through. She walked into a prop cage, and we shot it through the like chain link of this prop cage.
Yeah.
And the trajectory of the phone call starts off with her way up here, and she's like, "Oh, hi, Tom. Oh, so nice, love bug. You call me, whatever." Oh, no. And she's like, what? And you just see this long pause. And it's literally like this. It's like literally like she just turns into crepe paper and just collapses. And she's like, "You can't?" Oh, sure. Well, and she's doing that Valerie thing. And it's one of my favorite things in comedy, and one of the things, or just in trying to write comedy, that I'm always trying to look for is how can I have a really funny moment and then slide this pathos up against it.
Yeah.
And she can slide back and forth between those two things and not break a sweat.
Oh,
And she's flawless and amazing. And I don't know. It was like one of those things that every moment I was there was just heaven. And writing it was not even that hard because, again, between Michael and Lisa, you knew exactly what the target was. You knew exactly what the target was and what not to do, what Valerie would never come out of her mouth, what she would never say,
right,
what she would never do, and what would come out of her mouth. Go ahead.
No, but you talk about the Larry Sanders similarity, which is such a great comp for the show. And we talked about how Larry had Hank and Artie, and it was sort of a triad. With the comeback, it was pretty much all her. And that was a genius move because you had this desperate character, desperate to be loved for attention, for success, for admiration, surrounded by the absolutely pitch perfect, indifferent world that it really is Hollywood. Like the writers were either didn't give a shit about her or actively disliked her. You know, anyone you'd come across in terms of, you know, I'm thinking of the guy who put mics on people who was so creepy. Like it just, everyone in the world was so, like Hollywood is like an industry town where 98% of the people are just people going to a job that they don't even really like. And then you have this one person who thinks she's a shining star and she just can't get it from any side, including her incredibly cast husband, who was just
amazing.
And just in another business, he was like a lawyer or something. Yeah. Just had nothing to do, had no concept or care about what Valerie was doing. And that whole thing they get into, I have to sidetrack for a minute about the like running machine that Valerie had, like a workout machine. And they kept making references because she wanted badly for the reality cameras to see it. Like, look at me, I work out. But everyone who walked past it was just like, you never use this thing. Like, why, what are you doing in here? There were like clothes hanging on it. And then eventually that husband, Mark, like trips on it because he didn't know it was ever on and he shatters his wrist. I'm just fascinated to know, in the writer's room, were you guys consciously doing that? I mean, were you saying like, this is basically a drum solo for Lisa Kudrow and everyone else is just going to be like, they're not really going to take her bait?
Right. Well, we were, I mean, for one thing, just the thing that's obvious but really bears repeating is, the show literally did not exist unless Lisa was in the scene. If we didn't have Lisa, we had nothing. So Lisa was in as an actor, just speaking as an actor. She'd get a 30-page script and go, I'm in every scene, in every moment, in every frame of the show.
And you love it.
And you love it.
That's a lot of work.
But that her concentration to pull that off was like one thing. But we literally would say, Michael would go, what would Valerie say? Like, let's say this. And he'd say, Valerie's doing this in this situation. Okay, she's got this new running machine. So Valerie, here's your are you Miss Cherish? Yeah. Yes, I am. Valerie Cherish. And then we would literally do the scene and we'd improvise. And so I'd be the guy moving it in, and I'd be like, "Where do you want it, lady?" And she's like, "Well, not call me a lady, so that's nice,
Wow, this is how we would write it.
Like, and our writer system just be like getting as much of it down as we can,
nothing down.
That scene would morph 10 different times in that thing, but what was great about it is you were literally experiencing it in real time and go, that's how Lisa's mind thinks. That's what she's thinking about. They were just such great signposts as a writer to say, this is how I should go with this, and this is how it should work. Wow. So did we we thought about the other actors in the sense of like, we wanted them to have things to do and fun things for them to play too. But for sure, I will admit what we were also doing was using them to just constantly turn up the heat on Valerie.
God.
One thing I will say about the show, when you say it's kind of sort of like underrated show, one of the reasons that is true is I remember when there's two things that people would say to me all the time when that show came out. Number one was a lot of people, and it's hard to remember this now in the context of how much reality TV is out there now.
Right.
But the first season of The Comeback was coming out right on the very beginning of the bell-shaped curve of reality TV. There was some reality TV, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say to me, I'm not really sure what I'm watching. Right. As far as what is this exactly?
Yes, the format was tricky.
Yeah, and I was like, well, it's raw. It's supposed to be raw footage of like this sort of documentary they're doing about this thing. And then the other thing was, as people would say to me all the time, was some people would say it's like watching a horror movie when it's like you're just yelling at the TV, don't go into that room. That's where the murderer is. But for Valerie, you were like, don't do that. Like, please don't do that.
To me, that's a sign of a great, like you're doing a fantastic job if people are having that reaction.
Yes.
And I read in your interview, you said that, and I'm sure this is true, that people use the term cringeworthy a lot, which for me is also like you watch David Brent in The British Office, and I guess you could say, yeah, he's cringeworthy too, but he's also one of the funniest characters of all time. And I think Valerie cherishes that.
I would just also say too, I think that's kind of a slightly, pardon me guys for using this word, but I think it's a little bit of the patriarchy showing its face in the sense of like, I think like Carell does it and it's funny and hilarious and oh my God, he's so crazy. But she does it and it's like, oh, it makes me go, oh, you're so, why are you doing that? Like, I feel like her doing it. She didn't get as much leeway with that character to me as a dude would have gotten in doing it like Carell does with.
Okay, but I'm not going to sit by and watch the patriarchy be attacked on this show.
Bring it on, Goldie. Bring it on, man. Bring it on.
Well, all right, so bless you for the comeback because boy, that I mean, I've laughed as hard at that show
as
good.
Any
show
it
ever.
Really is.
So it really was.
And I know, I think a lot of people have seen it, but I do think that watch it, even if you've seen it. I'm going to go watch it again.
Yeah,
I know. Me too.
I just want to make draw this little line because it's been on my mind since I just saw it. I don't watch a lot of I haven't seen 30 Rock. I never see 30 Rock because I don't even know what it's on, if it is on anything, or maybe I guess it's on Peacock.
Right.
But this guy Ryan, a guy I follow on Instagram, put up. I actually talked to our post supervisor. I literally Zoomed with her yesterday for this reason. He put up the second episode we did of 30 Rock. And the second episode of 30 Rock, Tracy joins the show and then he throws a big party on his yacht. And Jane, this is to Janie Krakowski. Yeah. A shout out to her, who also has a lot of Valerie-like qualities.
Yes.
And there's a moment that this guy put up on his Instagram feed that made me laugh so hard that I had totally forgotten about, which is Tracy walks over and he's so young and he looks beautiful and he's in this white dinner jacket and he walks over to him and he goes, "Someone told me you sing. I didn't know that. Sing something for me." And he hands her a drink and she goes, "Oh, nobody wants to hear that." And he goes, "I do." And literally the word "do" just barely comes out of his mouth. And she's like, "Some folks take a holiday and sings a New York State of Mind, like full blast."
Love
and
that.
Literally, again, talking about skill sets.
Yeah.
Literally goes from like nearly heartbreaking, I'm not good enough to sing, to like that.
Oh,
and
God.
It's so. And I was saying to Irene, our post supervisor, and she's like, "I know." And she goes, and she had seen it a million times. She's saying, then they're holding it in a 2-shot, and it's hilarious to see what Tracy's doing. And I know that joke is not, that original, but to see Jane do it, to see Jane be in that sense, almost to the point of like, oh, I feel so bad for her. She doesn't think she's that good. Also, the audience didn't know her yet as a character and didn't know what she was truly like. So that
they knew it after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
but I think I just want to mention it because it's honorable mention in I love Janie so much. And
that's great.
Yeah,
that is so awesome. Man, you've been in so many special rooms, and we took a lot of your time today, and we so appreciate you coming in to talk about all of them. And I know that, we hear from people who want to be writers or people that don't even really want to have anything to do with Hollywood, and they love hearing these kinds of stories, and you've really given us a bunch of great ones today. So,
thank you.
John Riggi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I really, really enjoyed it, and I hope. I feel like sometimes when I start talking about stuff, I get like a million thoughts are coming into my head at once. So I hope it's somewhat coherent.
No, the good ones came out. The good ones came out.
Yeah, it's great.
JC will cut me out in post, and it'll just fly.
And now it's time for a portion of the show we like to call Top 5. Top 5.
All right.
Oh, great singing. Okay, so this was mine this week. It was Top 5 French things. I'll just get right into it.
Okay.
Number 5, ennui.
Oh,
I think ennui is awesome. Just smoke a cigarette, stare out the window, be bored.
Nice.
Number 4, French kisses.
Nice.
Good job. Good job. It's better. They're better. Nicer. Number 3, croissant. Oh, I love it's maybe my favorite.
There is do overlap.
Croissant, oui. And number 2 is the language. I think the French language is absolutely gorgeous.
Okay.
As Goldie remembers, I took French through high school, which means if I hear 2 people speaking a foreign language on the subway, I can tell you whether or not it's French. Joke from my old stand-up that got about the same reaction that it got those many years ago. And number 1 for me, I think I might be alone in this. Number 1 for me, Les Miserables. Oh, do I love that? My favorite musical.
You don't
All right.
want to be like the French philosopher on too long.
Nice.
All right, Goldie, go ahead.
Okay, number 5, croissant.
Yes, sir.
Number 4, baguette.
Oh, excellent.
Number 3 is French bicycles. They make a beautiful bicycle.
Sacre bleu.
My fuck breaks. Number 2, Côte d'Azur.
Oh,
French coast.
Very azure.
Côte
Nice.
d'Azur.
D'Azur.
Looks beautiful. I've never actually been
Azure.
there, but
It looks
amazing.
azure.
And number 1, indisputably and indubitably, Nutella.
That's French?
Oh,
I had
Oh,
no
didn't know that was
idea.
French.
We had a
No idea.
French exchange student. My brother went there, and then he came to our house, and he brought Nutella. And remember, in the 80s, you couldn't really buy stuff. Like,
Right.
there just wasn't anything. And it was like receiving a magical gift from another world.
Totally. I can
And then I
imagine.
searched for it forever again. Didn't see it for another 15 years.
Wow.
now you can get it everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you now care about it?
No.
Okay.
No. All right. J say.
Janice.
Janice.
Number 5, crepes.
Oh, very
Okay.
good. Very good.
Number 4, French onion soup.
Oh, excellent.
and,
Beaucoup de fromage.
Number 3, The Little Prince. The book.
Oh,
The Little Prince.
No.
Number
Jamais.
4, French cheeses. I guess.
Oh,
that's
Jesus Christ.
Cheese and rice. And then number 1, this is so random. It's a store that closed in Paris. It's called Colette. It was an amazing store. If anybody knows the store, you'll understand what this means. But it's a weird sort of exhibition concept store that was like very cutting edge, but it went out of business over a little before the pandemic. But it was.
Is that where you used to get your jackets with zippers on them?
Oh, what? Yes.
Okay, good.
I'll just say yes. I don't know. Okay, so that was my number one.
Yes.
Next week's, I'm going to go with top 5 logos.
Ooh.
Okay.
We haven't done that,
Love
right?
it.
Okay, cool.
Love top 5 logos. All right, we'll look forward to that next week. And do we have a guest next week? That guest is...
It's your agent, Matt Rice.
Wow. I'm so excited for next week. Super agent extraordinaire from UTA, the United Talent Agency, Mr. Matt Rice. And Goldie, dude, thanks for the rice. We're excited to talk to him, get the inside scoop on what they think about all of us.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, they think we're babies because we are.
Yep.
All right, let's end this week, as we do every week, on a high note. I have no idea what to do for a high note this week. It was so nice seeing all of you for my birthday. Tall did an amazing job, but I feel like I fucked it up. So my highlight is what's to come for me. Self-discovery.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I just, you know what? One little thing. You're allowed to be moody, by the way. I wanted to say that earlier, but I'm married to a man who's very similar in the way that you go about your life, similar background, and he's a very moody person. And when he's moody, I give him the space to be moody. So
yeah,
you
I
don't give
that.
yourself the space
Might
to be
be
moody,
all the
so.
weed.
Exactly. You both share that. So my high note is Isaiah Taylor.
Oh, yeah. Zeke.
Yes. Zeke. Is that what you guys call him?
I don't know. That was Isaiah Thomas's nickname,
Oh.
was Zeke. So I don't know why I gave him that nickname.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Isaiah Taylor has been helping us behind the scenes. He's been helping us with our promo assets.
Yes. And is it a coincidence that I think last week we may have had our best listener week ever?
Oh.
And I mean, I know Seth Meyers had something to do with that because he was
Yeah.
generous enough to post
That's
on
true.
his social
But
media.
I made those promo assets for Seth
Well, of
Meyers.
course. Of course. Yes,
yes.
but maybe just pushing them out on
No,
one
he
extra
did.
outlet.
And that was his idea to release them early. So yes.
This is why we need someone under 50 on the team.
Yes,
I know.
I know.
I no longer qualify.
And soon, hopefully, we'll take some burden off of my shoulders, but that's what we're working on. So
Thanks, Isaiah.
yes.
Thank you. Look, my high note, I had a great trip to the East Coast. A lot of it was Urintal hospitality. The house was great. The people were great. The food was great. I had a good time, and even if you didn't.
I did.
And I saw my mom. That was great. And so, let's see what this week brings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All
Goldie's going to be bringing in your gift from me.
Yes.
Oh,
And
for
we
me.
all, yeah, and all three of us will have one. So I don't know.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Okay,
Very
cool.
exciting. Well, thank you two for talking me through this today. I really needed it.
Happy birthday.
Thank everyone for putting up with my little tantrum hissy fit.
Not a
And
tantrum.
we will talk to all of you next week. No, not next week. Thanks for the rice.